Hey, everybody, welcome back to an exciting episode of the Experts Game podcast. My name is Matt Rudisell, and I'm your host. And I want to thank you for being here to see this excellent interview we had with a good friend of mine. His name is Nick Dyson. Now, first of all, I want to apologize a little bit because this episode is getting to you a little bit late. I tried last month, had some technical issues, but I finally got it posted, and I wanted to go ahead and give this brief introduction. Today I was able to sit down with Nick Dyson of Dyson Leadership, and we talked about things such as coaching and teaching, and primarily leadership, not only in your business, but also in your life. So I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please make sure you subscribe to this channel for more exciting videos, and also make sure you like the video as well. It helps us produce more of these for you guys. So without further ado, sit back. Here's my interview with Nick. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Matt Rudisell, and I'm the host of the Experts Game podcast. We're excited to have a very special guest with us. His name is Nick Dyson. He owns Dyson Leadership Coaching, and I hope I didn't botch that name any, Nick, but we're glad you're here, so welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be on. Happy we finally get a chance to sit down and chat.
I know. That kind of starts us off really well. You know, Nick and I have probably known each other for a couple of years now, and we've been trying to do this interview for a good while, and just really haven't been able to get together. I know he's really busy, and I've been really busy, so it's nice to finally get this done. And if you haven't watched any of the Experts Game podcasts before, you probably don't know who we interview and why we interview people, but we always like to find the experts, not just in the business field. Of course, Nick is in that field right now, in the more of the marketing and the leadership, but in any field. So I've been able to interview some wonderful teachers and preachers and maybe nurses and doctors and just different people. So um, I am glad you guys are back here with us today. So let's get started, Nick, just by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure, absolutely. So, got started doing this leadership coaching. I know that's kind of the main focus. So, kind of give a little bit of background and story with that. But I was a person I was always involved with leadership stuff, volunteer leadership roles, involved in church leadership, leadership within youth organizations as I was a teenager growing up, in groups in college. I mean, it just continued. Everywhere I went, I was pursuing and looking for leadership responsibilities, clubs, groups, learning opportunities, whatever it was. And so for me, it just kind of continued. I ended up studying business in college, and that was one of my main focuses. Started working in, corporate America, getting out of college, started working through a lot of different things. And one of my first jobs was really relationship management. And primarily, I dealt heavily with the VPs, the directors, the CFOs, C-suite executives of the different accounts that I was assigned to build relationships with. And I got to see how different companies would operate and function and how they would interact in different areas. I saw some good and I saw some horrible examples of running a company in that instance. And so it was really enlightening and learning in that instance. So I continued my education, worked towards a master's degree with the hopes of teaching business classes in the future and hopefully continuing just to grow leadership, management skills, and that kind of thing. And ultimately, it led me to where we hit the pandemic and everything went absolutely crazy and haywire. So I finished my master's degree early on during the pandemic. And I was sitting with what felt like no real opportunities for advancement with my company. There were layoffs, there were budget cuts, there were a lot of stuff going on. And so I was looking at, okay, how can I take my skill set and how can I go into something that is a teaching or coaching or something of that nature that I'm truly passionate about? I love teaching people and sharing information with people. So I started kind of branching out, looking, and came across John Maxwell's coaching program, which is through, it's now branded Maxwell Leadership. At the time, it was called the John Maxwell Team. But that's where they bring people in, they train them, teach them how to start their own coaching business, give them tools and resources to get that started. And then they give you some, not a lot, but some of John Maxwell's content, since he's been in leadership and writing and speaking for decades. And they say, here's a handful of books. You are licensed to use these for the most part at our discretion to do trainings and workshops and coaching individuals. That way you have a level of credibility with John's content. You can do your own, you can create your own content, which I have, but then there's also, you have John's content to fall back on since he's more well known in the business world. So it's kind of a partnership that's created underneath what is almost a franchise, a hybrid between a franchise and a license type model. So I registered that business back in 2022. So I've been doing it for a couple years now, and definitely seen some growth. But truly, a passion that I have is teaching. So even beyond that, for me personally, I also have got the opportunity to teach business classes, and I teach in general human resources management, business law, principles of management, some things like that. Hoping to add more management classes in the future, but those are things that are, I guess, areas of my expertise that I'm focusing on, continually learning. Got a bookshelf behind me back here that's full of management and leadership books because I'm always learning and reading and studying just to grow my influence and what I can do for people. So that's a little about me.
Well, that's fantastic. I know we probably connected a lot through some of the training and teaching as well. We actually both teach for the same college,
Yep.
um, and I teach some business growth courses as well. I teach some business planning courses. I teach a business finance course and a business marketing course. So I think that between Nick and I think maybe one or two other instructors, we kind of cover the entire business department,
Pretty
uh,
close. Yeah.
which is pretty cool. But we both have that passion. We both have that desire to get in and teach. I've been doing it a lot longer than Nick, maybe a lot longer than Nick is old. I'm not really sure, but I've been teaching now for 27 years. And I just truly love it and love helping other people. So we have that in common. One of the things that we both probably have similar instances with would be our work day. Tell me a little bit about what your average work day is. I know, I think you have an office at that college. Is that correct?
Yes. So
Right.
most people panic when they hear me say what all I actually do because it sounds way more intense than what it actually is. It just sounds like a lot in on paper or in words. But technically, I do work a full-time staff position at the college,
Okay.
but they work a modified schedule. So I work in their human resources department. I handle their HRIS systems, professional development, a lot of just general HR related inquiries, doing a lot of general work. Some things that kind of overflow from other people. If they're busy, don't have bandwidth, I pick it up. So as far as most things in an HR role, I can handle or pick up and run with as needed. But the technology systems and professional development are a couple things I focus a little bit more so on. So that's my primary job. But again, modified schedule. Most people hear that and they think I'm working 40 plus hours at that. And it's not. It's actually a 36-hour work week. So that's already shortened. It's only 4 days a week as opposed to five.
Mhm.
So there again, more flexibility. Coming from a corporate environment to a state run institution, there's more paid time off, personal leave, things like that than what was available otherwise. So that gives me more flexibility, time with family, and so on. So that's something that's completely different. Then you add on teaching as an adjunct business instructor. That's typically 2 classes per semester. Currently in the summer, I don't have any. I don't think you do either. I know summer's kind of a downtime for a lot of programs, but normally it's a couple classes a semester. They're all online, so they're
Mm.
essentially at my convenience when I have time, can sit down, create content, post it, generally plan ahead of time, post it out, and then it's just grading assignments as I go through the semester and responding to things students need. So as long as I set time aside on the front end and plan and prepare, the workload as I go through the course isn't that bad. So there again, perfectly fits into my schedule, how I can balance. And then on top of that, doing the leadership training and coaching, a lot of opportunities I've had so far, luckily, have been on Fridays and Saturdays, surprisingly. And so that gives me a good option to tack those on at the end of the week and do some extra work there. And some other, I've done some virtual events, some virtual lunch and learns. Those I typically will do either in the evening or I will plan it around something else that I've got time off for. So, for example, if I've got um, some meeting that I need to be at that's external from my work, say it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, can I take an extra hour, hour and a half of my time off, stop by at my house, do a quick free lunch and learn virtual event, something like that for an hour, then go to my meeting, and an extra hour of my time off isn't going to really impact a lot of things. So for me, a typical day, 7:30 to 5, including my lunch break at the college, Monday through Thursday. Friday is almost exclusively doing leadership and focusing on Dyson leadership. Then in the afternoons and evenings, when I get home from work, that's normally when I'm checking email. I can still respond to email, schedule stuff for my leadership business, as well as grading assignments, working on my classes. So as long as I budget time and prioritize well, all of that fits in really, really well. It kind of pieces together like a puzzle, but it fits in really, really well.
That's fantastic. I know that with my average day, and nobody's really ever asked me that, and maybe I'll do a video a little bit later on, just kind of giving everybody what I do on an average day. Um, Bottom line comes out to being what you just said. As long as I schedule it, as long as I prioritize certain things, everything fits together very well. I have several meetings today, and we just do one after another. I think today is Friday, actually. It's been a very strange week. Um, my little girl got out of school the middle of this week, which was odd. You have the last day of school on a Wednesday, which is different. But I think the big thing that you really talked about there was systems. You've got to have systems in place. And what made you, is that something you learned through Maxwell leadership? Is this something you just knew about? What made you determine that you were going to have systems in your life in order to make things easier for you?
Trial and error to one extent. So I mentioned in kind of opening up that I've been involved in around leadership stuff for years since I was a teenager, I guess probably
Hmm.
15, 14 years old, something like that. So the topic around having systems and scheduling and planning things out, I've always heard, but throughout my college experience, throughout those years, I did not do that. And I learned from my mistakes. And so a great example of that is I would heavily procrastinate. And with college assignments, I, especially with my master's program, was focusing on it online while working. And so I would work a 40 plus hour work week. Sometimes it was a 50-hour work week based on job demands. And I would have school to do. And I would come home in the evening and be like, well, I'm kind of tired. I'll do it later. Well, I'm kind of tired. I'll do it later. And then we would get the night before the deadline and go, okay, I don't have time anymore. I've got to do it. Good work, not good work, whatever. I've got to finish it. And so as I was going through that program, I started realizing the importance of if I'm going to do this in balance, then I need to have set time. I need to pick specific hours every week, specific time that I focus on my schoolwork after or outside of my working hours. And so when it came to the desire to be an entrepreneur, start my own business, teaching business classes, anything extra on the side like that, it just carried over from that lesson that I learned and had to figure out where, okay, I've got my regular daytime responsibilities. What's my flexibility within that? What's my lunch break look like? What does my time off look like? What does uh, vacations, holidays, how do all those fit in? And how can I plan those out? And then also, how can I use my time in the afternoons, the evenings, and weekends to have time for what's important? Set time aside for family, for activities for me and my wife. How can I also set time aside for business? And then if I can prioritize and set those in place, then I'll be fine. But truly, it was learning from the procrastination and the many sleepless nights, a few hours of sleep, and realizing that that was a miserable way to live. And realizing that having a system made way more sense. So sadly, it came from lots of headache.
Yeah, I think a lot of us in the business world have seen that. And I think that's one of the reasons that I enjoy so much what I do when I'm able to coach people, I'm able to help people. Because I've already been there and done that. I've learned different things not to do, and I'm able to relay that to people. I think systems are so important in what we do in our daily business, and as you can attest to that, it's helped you get to where you want to go. Now, most entrepreneurs on the same scale would have that desire and that hustle that they also have to get there, and you definitely have that because it's that old saying, if it was easy, everybody would do it, right?
Right.
And that's definitely not what business is. It may look easy because we've set these systems up to make it that way, but we've learned that we have to do that in order to survive, in order to get our business to the next level. So it's good that you've learned that so early in your business. A lot of people may not learn it ever, so it's
Right.
definitely good there. Let me ask you this question. If you were to change something, now I know you're early in your
Mhm.
business and you're young, but I've been able to see different things over the last, 25, 27, 28 years in business. It might be too early for you to answer this question, but if you were to change something that you've done, what would it be? What would you do differently today?
So I think one of the biggest ones that comes to mind for me, and it's one of those in hindsight type
Mhm.
moments, but starting sooner. So when I started and was looking at pursuing this as an entrepreneurial endeavor was after finishing my master's program in late 2020. What I saw then was a lot of companies and a lot of people actually did not stop spending money for training and development, lunch and learns, professional development for their employees. They were still spending the same amount of money and same amount of effort. What changed was they didn't want people to come in person. They wanted people to come virtually via Zoom or Microsoft Teams or some other virtual platform. So I saw that and saw the potential of the flexibility. So when I first started, my thought process was, okay, I'm signed up for this program. This is late 2020. I need to finish the full program before I start marketing myself. And that's going to be about a year where I still had the tools and the resources to get started. I just wasn't a quote unquote certified trainer. I still had the tools and resources, but I could have started, but instead I waited. But also, if you pay attention to the timeline, I referenced that I filed my business or started in 2022. I finished that certification at the end of 2021. What my thought process was, even at that time, was okay, I need to finish my certification. And then my thought process number two was, well, I don't have the network, I don't have the connections. So I need to start posting social media content. I need to start doing YouTube videos and I need to do all of this stuff. And then that will build my base. And if I do all of that, then everything else will follow. The problem was it wasn't targeted because, yes, I'm getting views. Yes, I'm getting some followers on different social media platforms, but they could be from anywhere. They could be spam bots. They could be from any state in the US. They could be in another country. there's no guarantee they're my right target audience. And so that was my focus. And so I went from waiting to mistargeting to then finally in 2022 saying, okay, here's where I need to actually get started and start building some roots and then growing from there. But by that point, there was already starting to be the shift back to people wanting more in-person training.
Mm,
So for me, I lost an opportunity to get some practice, some of the reps in, and some of the potential clients while they were still virtual when I had more flexibility than what I had when I started in 2022. So if I would look back and start again, I wish I would know back then to be more targeted and start earlier to take advantage of what the market was doing then to help create a more substantial base moving forward. Instead, it's made it a lot harder to market, but
mm.
it's one of those in hindsight. But I was paralyzed by the details, worried about, do I have the right information? Did I have the right credentials? Did I do the right things? Am I marketing the right way? And I was so focused on the specifics instead of actually just going and getting started and just throwing myself out there and kind of diving into the deep end of the pool and trying to figure it out after, which in hindsight would have probably helped me a lot more. But lessons learned.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like my situation was at that time that I went from doing in-person seminars, in-person speaking. I had been doing that prior for I don't know, 20 years, I guess. And what I saw the market going towards, I was able to hopefully, I think I saw it fairly early when COVID hit that I moved everything online. I went from doing actually probably about 35 to 40 seminars a year to over 100. I tripled in a few months. And I felt like that was good. Now I wasn't making triple the money, because I
Sure.
reduced my fee a little bit because I wasn't having to go in person. But now I'm starting to see more and more in person speaking engagements come back a little bit. But I want to kind of reiterate a few things that you said. You said, don't be paralyzed by the details. Actually, what you said was, I was paralyzed by the details, but the tip is don't be paralyzed by the details. And you probably have heard before that done is better than perfect.
Yep.
So a lot of us want everything to be just right with our business. We want everything to be just perfect. We're afraid that if we get out there and present something, whether it be on YouTube or on social media, and it looks not very good, we're concerned that people uh, may not follow us and may not look at us. But I can go ahead and tell you, as a marketer and somebody who's been working with, I've worked with thousands of businesses over the years. Done is better than perfect. And people like to see the real you. If you go out and you make a mistake, and then the next video you pop on and say, oh, by the way, what I said last video was not exactly right. I didn't mean to say it that way, or maybe I did mean to say it that way. I was just wrong. When you say things like that, people see you as a real person. They will follow you. They will pay attention to what you have to say. You've got to get started in business. So, great tip for anybody wanting to start a business today. Just do it. Nike's got that great slogan for a reason. You got to
Yes.
just get out and do it. Okay. Two more questions and then we'll be done. We've had a great interview today, by the way, and I can't believe it's already about 25 minutes into it. But one question I ask everybody, and I may have sent it to you in advance, but I don't know if I did or not. But what is one thing that you do that you enjoy that maybe people don't know about you? Is there something that you would want to share? Or if you don't want to share, that's perfectly fine too. But is there something that is kind of unique that you enjoy doing, maybe a hobby or something like that?
Yes, I feel like the easy answer for me would try to be passing off, public speaking, teaching, because that is
Mhm.
something I enjoy, but I know that's not exactly what you're going for. I would say for me, kind of a hobby, something I enjoy, more relaxing, is I've always been a big fan of video games. And so I don't talk about it as much as I used to, just because, especially as teenager, college, I mean, that was the thing. You sit down, you play video games constantly. As an adult, working and having a business and everything, it's hard to find that time. But I still like to try to find that time just set aside, spend a couple hours playing, some sports video game or racing video game, something like that, and just using that to unwind. But that for me is kind of an outlet, a relaxing type thing. But kind of the thought that I have from that is always try to find something that's a relaxing and outlet that you can use in that instance. For me, that's one of them. For somebody else, like my wife, I know she enjoys gardening or painting. So, I mean, there's always something somebody can use as an outlet.
Yeah, I think that's really the reason why I asked that question. A lot of people I've interviewed, believe it or not, have said gardening. I've had a few people say, "Well, I'm a drummer. I play the drums." I think you're the first one that said video games, but I pulled something out of there that I don't even know if you were thinking, but I wanted to share it. I used to play video games a lot as a kid, and occasionally I'll do a little bit now with my daughter. She plays a few video games online. I think one great thing about video games, even though they can be very relaxing, is as an entrepreneur, one of the main things that we have to do is we have to pay attention to details. We have to look at some of the little things. In a video game, that's what you're doing. You're really paying attention to the details. So whether it's subconscious or whether you know it or not, you're pretty much training yourself while you're there. Whatever video game you play, you have to pay attention to the details. So I think that was a great answer, and it was a good tip as well. Anything else regarding tips for brand new business owners, whether they want to go into leadership coaching, training, teaching, or anything? What do you want to leave us with today?
Sure. I think the biggest thing for me, and it's kind of I hesitate to say a niche market that I focus on, but it's something I'm very passionate about and I tell a lot of people about. But kind of tying back into the premise of don't be paralyzed by the details,
Mhm.
but it's also the topic of imposter syndrome or feeling like an imposter. So many people struggle with that concept and that idea of I'm not good enough. I don't have the right credentials. I don't have the right degree. I don't have the right knowledge. I don't have this or that. Or I'm going to start this and then people will realize I'm a fraud. I don't know exactly everything there is to know and everything's not perfect. I may make mistakes and then they're not going to buy my products or use my services because I've made a mistake or I've done something wrong. But we can become so consumed by that fear of the what if or feeling like we don't belong that that can stop a lot of people from continuing and pushing for their business. For me, the reason this matters to me so much, I know it's come up a couple times in the interview, and I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me at all. But I am younger, and so there's a lot of people when they see me specifically in leadership training and coaching, I get told I don't belong. I've had people say it to my face. I've had people joke and say, people won't hire a leadership trainer or a leadership coach unless you've got more gray hair. And I'm like, maybe it's good genetics that I don't have more gray hair. How can you say that? But at the same time, I've had people that look and they make the case. They go, well, you really need to climb the corporate ladder and have all these different experiences and positions, and then you can go and do something else. And I remind them that my business model, I'm not going out and speaking to executives. If they want me to, sure. My primary thing is focusing on the aspiring leaders, the ones who are growing into leadership roles, the ones who are younger looking to grow in those leadership skills to help grow and expand their career. At that point, my target market, it's clearly defined, but people hear that leadership coach or term and they want to put a label to it that, oh, it's these upper level leaders, it's the business leaders running a big company, massive company. It's not always the case. So we can't judge a book by its cover. You also can't get paralyzed by what other people say, because people will make assumptions. They'll make wrong assumptions. They'll tell you you don't belong, that you can't do it. Especially anytime it's entrepreneurial, I've learned people say it's not going to work, it's not going to do, you're not going to make money, you should just work a regular job, and so on. You hear all of those things. So my advice and kind of my final thoughts is, if you know it's something you're supposed to do and it's something you are passionate about, then you got to stick to your belief that it's the right thing to do and it's your passion, it's your drive, because ultimately that is what's going to keep you going.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And normally I will end the interview on that, but I want to jump in and kind of say something a little bit today too, based on that. Um, Nick is a lot younger than I am, and I am probably old enough to be his father, but I've got a lot of experience in business, and I will tell you that those people who are saying that you don't have the experience, the people that are saying you haven't paid your dues, those are not the people you want to work with because they're not going to learn anything from you anyway.
Okay.
Uh, I have learned over the years that if I don't keep my ears open, and I say this in a lot of classes, that God gave us two ears and one mouth so we'd listen twice as much as we speak. And that's hard for a speaker to do. But I have learned that if you don't keep your ears open to anyone, I learned stuff from my 8 year old. I learned stuff from my 24-year old. I learned stuff from my 21-year old, my kids. I learned stuff from my wife. I learned stuff from my parents. I learned stuff from everybody. And you've got to be open to that. I have known Nick for a little while, and he has got the gift of teaching, and he's got a gift of speaking into people. And it doesn't matter if he was 15 or 25 or 65. None of that really matters. What matters is what you can find insight from. And I know Nick is one of those that you can definitely find that. So I really appreciate you being here. I wanted to kind of mention that and kind of speak that into you today, that you're on the right track. You're definitely doing you're definitely doing the things now that a lot of people probably wouldn't do to get into this position. A lot of people, I heard you say at one point, about being tired and I didn't want to do this. And that was one of those things that you learned early on, that you can't wait until the last minute. And you kind of, as an entrepreneur, you don't get tired. We all get tired, but we don't let it push us. I
Sure.
need to have my wife on here to interview her because she is a prime example of somebody that pushes through, um, time constraints and not feeling good and things like that. She's a professional baker. So, um, I have really enjoyed this interview today, Nick. I know you're going to do some great things. I'll tell you what I wish I would have done differently is I wish I would have started out like you have when I was your age. I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have been able to, speak into other people and go in and do leadership. I didn't consult with my first, Fortune 100 company until I was probably in my late 30s. So I wish I would have done a lot of that earlier. But I truly have enjoyed this interview today. Thank you so much for being here. Any final thoughts or anything you want to leave anybody with?
I think just final thoughts from my perspective doing leadership training. A lot of people see leadership as management, title, position, but ultimately, leadership is just your influence over another person, being able to leave some positive impact on their life, encourage them, help them, do something nice for another person. All of those are examples and very simple examples of leadership. So I always tell that to people when I'm teaching, and especially people who try to tell me they're not a leader or have no leadership qualities. If you're a human being and you can be nice, you can encourage, you can help somebody in some way, that makes you a leader. You have influence in their life. So that's final thoughts from me.
Fantastic, Nick. That was a great way to end the day. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Experts Game. And I can't wait till the very next one. And I'll go ahead and put this out there that Nick and I are going to have to do this again. I'm kind of putting him on the spot right now. I would love to have a part two of this, and we'll have to maybe schedule that a little bit later on.
Yeah, I'm up for it. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, thank you guys, everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon, and I will see you on the next episode. I'll put some of Nick's information down in the information point of this video. Check him out if you need good leadership training for your business, or maybe just you personally. Give him a call. Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.